All right, what's up everybody? It's Brenton Brown from Forza Tuning and Performance, and this is part 3 of the 3-part series on how we build the ultimate Hellcat. So let's check it out. What we do here is we remove the supercharger, and this front drive right here, this gets taken off and disassembled, and it gets high-speed bearings put in, a billet hub to reduce overall heat. It gets a custom pulley with a constrictor grip coating, so the pulley looks just like the stock pulley, and it's like that on purpose, okay? It doesn't draw a lot of attention. Some of these aftermarket pulleys, they look real gaudy with all this bullshit on them. Personally, I don't like it. It's, you know, that's just personal taste. So the constrictor grip coating, it's hard to see, but if you rub your finger where the belt rides, it's kind of rough. You know, there's a lot of resistance there. Where some of these cheaper aluminum pulleys, they're very slick, so they contribute to belt slip. So people don't know why the belt's slipping, so they start adding extra tensioners, okay, which you do not need. We push these cars to 25 pounds of boost with no additional tensioners. If you put the proper pulley combination on there, you should not have any belt slip on these cars. The problem with adding extra tensioners is you are increasing the pressure on everything that this belt is turning. So all this stuff that has bearings in it, you are putting exaggerated wear and tear on the entire front drive of everything on the engine, okay? So the proper way to do that is keep the belt tension at a stock level and make a pulley that remedies the belt slip properly, okay? So since this supercharger, you drink water. So since this supercharger is together and it's easier for me to see something visually, I'm gonna show you the front drive that has been modified, okay? And so this is gonna give you a good idea. Now, I don't have one that has not been modified to show you exactly, but this is very smooth. It's opened up. This is after it's been ported and polished. So now the airflow can flow through here much easier, less resistance with more velocity, okay? So a thing about porting and polishing, most people think that they can get in here and just take a Dremel tool and just start, you know, opening up material, and it doesn't quite work like that. That's a twofold method. There is more flow, but you also have to take in airflow velocity, okay? So if you get something too big or it's not shaped properly, even though it's bigger and less resistance, you can lose velocity and it actually flows less air, okay? So there's a lot of science behind this, okay? And a lot of people don't realize this. So how it's ported is extremely important to overall power. So another thing, inside here, all the bearings have been upgraded and the billet hub and all that stuff. So you can't really see that, but the next thing I'll show you is the pulley. And here is where you can see the coating that goes on here. And I know you can't feel it, but you can kind of see it's kind of like got a frosty look, and this is what prevents the belt slippage. One other key factor is these superchargers are prone to noise, and we fixed a lot of these. And I mean, a lot of this probably shouldn't be telling you, because it's telling you a bunch of secrets that, you know, most people don't know why in hell they make noise, but I really don't care. We got more business than we know what to do with, so I'll just tell you, and hopefully somebody can, you know, benefit from it. So these drive pins that they use on here are not the best drive pins, okay? So we have some custom Hartin drive pins that we insert in here, and then we modify the bushings that go in the supercharger bearing plate, and then we have a special substance that we put on here on each one of these drive pins, and this fixes all the supercharger noises or rattles or the shit that anybody can't figure out. So for any of y'all that are wondering, or this is not all of it, but this is a big part of the fix, okay? And, you know, I'm not much on hiding shit. I don't really care. You know, it's rather just show you all so you know. Past that, we change injectors, and injectors are basically spec'd off the specific package. Okay, so I'm a big fan of fuel injectors from John from Fuel Injector Connection. I know a lot of people like ID injectors, and they're extremely good. I've used John for a lot of years. I think his injectors are super high quality, and probably in the last 15 years, I have never had a single injector problem from him. So great guy to deal with, you know, so that's generally what we use on most applications. Sizing is dependent on power level, okay? And we also drill and tap the blower case for a boost reference. You can't see that because it's in the very back of the blower case, but basically where this map sensor is right here, on the back side of the blower, on this same side, there's nothing here. This is flat. So we drill and tap this for a boost reference, and then we put a port with a vacuum manifold, so then we can get boost reference off anything that we want. And we're doing that mainly because we have a dual booster pump set up on here, okay? It's installed in the trunk, I'll show you all, but that's where we get our boost reference for the booster pump. Other than that, that's pretty much it up here. I mean, obviously we've got, this is our catch can, crankcase breather system. While we're here, I'm gonna go on and talk a little bit about this, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you all, at least on the Hellcat platform, how the crankcase ventilation system works. Normally, what we have here is the clean air from the crankcase. So the crankcase ventilation system, crankcase meaning the area underneath the pistons in the crankcase. So where the crankshaft is, where the oil, and what happens is every engine has blow-by gases. So during the combustion process, not all the combustion gases are burned. Some of it slips past the rings on the piston and go down into the crankcase, okay, which would build pressure. So you have to properly evacuate that out. So the way they do this on the Hellcat is, here's your air intake, and you have clean air coming in on this system. This is a little updated design. So on the older Hellcats, you don't have this. Basically, you have this hose basically going to here to the valve cover, okay? So on this is going through a valve, and it's not really important. It's doing the same thing. But what we do is we route the clean air through here. We change the oil cap over to our clean side separator, okay? This is our first step of filtration, and this is also our first step that we use to capture any particles, and we also increase flow, okay? So we want a large amount of air to be able to come into the clean side. So we'll call this side of the valve cover the clean side. So from the valve cover, it goes down through the crankcase, okay? And now we've got unburnt fuel, combustion gases, and so on and so forth. So where that's gonna come out at is the valve cover on this side, okay? So stock, what they do is they have a hose from this valve cover, and it goes right over here to this port on the supercharger, okay? And what they're doing is they're taking the dirty crankcase gases, the ones that are mixed with oil molecules and unburnt fuel, and they're routing it right in here to the supercharger to be reburned into the engine, okay? So you're getting, instead of a clean intake charge, now it's mixed with oil molecules which have no octane, unburnt exhaust gases, and everything else. Not anything that's conducive for maximum power or that you'd really want to run back through the engine, okay? It does flow pretty good for a stock system. So flow isn't as big of an issue as it is on like the GM platform. But most of the catch cans that you see for these things are like a little fancy billet can that's like a fancy looking beer can, okay? And all they do is they mount them somewhere on here, and they just take this hose, stick it on the beer can, and then run another hose right in there. Whatever happens to run down to the bottom of the beer can, it catches it. And when people open it up and they see a little bit of oil or something in their mind, they're like, wow, that works, okay? It does work, sort of, but you're probably getting maybe 10% of what's actually, going through there. So it's mostly a decorative showpiece. It doesn't really serve a whole lot of functionality. What we do is our crankcase system, the dirty air comes out of here, okay? And we come in through the middle port on our can right here. And inside here is some baffling and some screens and several chambers, okay? And what it does is it forces the air through the different filters and chambers, through the bottom of the can and back out through the outside of the can, and it exits on both of these, okay? And then we have one-way check valves. So air can only go this way, out of the can. On the bottom of the can, there's a check valve. So we just have it on this one bolt, so you can take the bolt loose, lift the can up, you don't have to unhook any hoses, and just crack the ball valve over, like, cut a milk jug in half and drain the can, okay? So very easy to service. So what happens is now we have the same air that's filtered thoroughly coming back in through two hoses, and you'll see that one of them goes back into the supercharger, okay? So the difference is we're still keeping the same system in place here, but now it's thoroughly filtered through this can assembly, okay? Which on the stock system, it's not filtered at all, and the other system is basically just whatever runs down the side of a can, so it's basically nothing. But on our system, we have a third line, okay? And this is the one that you don't see on any other can. What it is we're just routing the air back into the intake tube, okay? So you're probably wondering, why we're doing that. What we want to do is we want to increase the amount of air that can be evacuated out of the crankcase because we don't want any pressure. So as you get higher boost, higher RPMs, you're gonna need to be able to flow more. When we route this second line right here, here's the throttle body. So at wide open throttle, there's not a whole lot of engine vacuum. There's no engine vacuum, you know, and we need more air evacuated. So right here with this throttle blade wide open, there's obviously a tremendous amount of air coming through this air filter and through the front of the blower. Okay, this acts as a super strong Venturi effect, okay? So at wide open throttle, we have now 2 ways to evacuate the air from the crankcase. And during idle or whatever, we don't need that much air. This throttle blade's closed. We can go back to the factory system, but it's still filtered. So we have a lot of questions on the crankcase stuff. We don't sell these. It just, we build these for the cars that we build in-house. Okay, so the only other thing I want to tell you about here is we make a custom set of supercharger spacers. We've been doing this for a long time. Well before they came on the market, we just never told anybody about it because that was one of the kind of secret things that we did in-house. And yes, they do work. It's a thermal barrier between the supercharger and the engine, you know, cylinder heads themselves. And we also have a thermal blanket that goes underneath the supercharger to keep the supercharger from getting heat soaked. And they do work very well. And it's kind of a cheater. It increases the intake runner length 3/8 of an inch, so it helps to build more torque. So that's on here. You can't really see it because they're down tucked in here. So that's it from underneath the hood. So the only other thing to show you is what's in the trunk. So let's go check that out. In the trunk, there's not a whole lot to show you. There's no nitrous, there's no anything like this. Really the only thing that's located back here is the booster pump unit, and that's right here. And we use booster pump units by Kenny Bell. In my experience, they make the best booster pump units. There's several companies that make them. They don't call them booster pumps. That's kind of their signature name. I think Holley makes something, but I've had failures out of every single brand except for Kenny Bell. So I always use it in every car. On the Hellcat stuff, they utilize a single fuel pump system. So you use a single booster pump system. On the Trackhawk, Red Eye Demon, it's a dual fuel pump system. So there's a dual booster pump system. We run an entirely plug and play harness that goes in line with the fuel pump control modules. So there's no wire splicing like we talked about earlier. It's totally self-contained. And basically a booster pump, most people know what that is. It's just that the voltage system on a car is a 12-volt system, but you know, with it running an alternator, you go at about 14. The more voltage you apply to electric motor, the faster it turns, okay? So all that does is it has a boost reference that goes up to the supercharger that we talked about earlier. And when the car sees boost, that activates the Hobbs switch and turns on the booster pump. And all it does is increase the voltage, you know, coming in. It takes the 14 volts coming in, it increases or boosts the voltage going out to the fuel pumps, okay? So it gives them more voltage so they flow more. These are totally tunable. You can, if you don't know what you're doing, you can damage fuel pumps with these. We run these super conservatively, and it provides adequate fuel flow until you're getting into super high power, you know, situations. And it's a very cost-effective way to do it. That's about it on this car. The only other thing that I could think of to tell you on this car, and I haven't tested it yet, is normally we always use a stock throttle body. But on this particular car, we are going to fully tune the car out exactly like we normally would. And we're gonna put it on a dyno and test results and everything. And then we're gonna install this Kong throttle body, okay? So the owner sent this to us and he wants to know real world data. How much does this pick up? How much does it gain? So we're gonna test it for him. And I'm gonna show you all that in another video. So we'll do our package completely like it normally would be. We're gonna leave the tune completely alone for the first pull, and we're simply going to remove the stock throttle body, put the Kong on there, and do another pull. If we have to tweak fueling or whatever for it, we will. And then what we're gonna do is also, we're going to change intake tubes to a larger size. So we're gonna see how much does the throttle body itself gain, if any, I don't know. And then does it gain even more with an intake tube? So be looking out for that video. So if you're curious and you're thinking about changing throttle bodies, I'm personally kind of curious myself. So, you know, this will be something on this car, and that's about it. This is our, you know, in our opinion, the ultimate way to build a super high power Hellcat Red Eye platform with maximum reliability, where the car is as reliable or more reliable than stock. Okay guys, that sums it up. That is start to finish how we build the ultimate Hellcat. our Stage 4R package. Hopefully this gave you some insight on what goes on behind the scenes. If it helps any of you all in your own projects, then that's the point of this, is show you what's good, who the better vendors are, what you get the most for your money out of, so on and so forth. So I hope you liked the series. If you have any suggestions for future build series, drop them in the comments. We have no problem filming any of that. Again, thanks guys, we appreciate the support, and we'll see you next time.